I have my scars. My scars was from being a buyer at that time. Okay, so
You were a buyer? Someone was
I'm
buying a house at
buyer.
that time?
I was a buyer. I was a seller and a buyer. I was 4 months pregnant.
If you had to start today as a new agent, what would you do? I get this call a lot. I think you do too, especially from past clients. Hey, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license. What do you think? What should I do? Hi, I'm Meghan Pelley with All City Real Estate, and today Mindi Stange, broker of record for San Antonio All City Registered Series, is going to be joining me, and we're going to talk about real estate. Mindi, can you tell everybody out there a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Again, so I'm Mindi Stange, and I am the broker of record for All City, San Antonio, New Braunfels. And I have been doing real estate now for 12 years. And why am I the broker? Well, we were together when I did the mentorship program at another brokerage, and I have a teaching background as well. And I like teaching other agents. And so as I kind of, switching between higher production and management, I really enjoyed teaching agents. And so I said, why not? Why not get the broker's license? Why not be the broker of record? And I really enjoyed it. I like it. I love helping agents, and I manage, let's see, here in San Antonio, we have just over 100, and statewide, we're in the thousands.
Okay.
So, as you know, we have our hotline for all of our agents. So
Call
I
it the
answer
bat
that as well. Yes, the bat phone. Megan is a part of that, and we appreciate that. So any of our agents, if they have a question, we know real estate is 24/7. So if you've got a problem with a transaction on Sunday at 5 p.m., you can call 866 Just Ask and get one of us on the phone to help you out with that. So
That's right.
we're big on education here at All City, and I loved that. And so that is why I chose to be the broker of record here.
I agree. One of the things I like about All City Real Estate is they have a ton of complimentary mandatory continuing education classes. If it's a class that they offer, they work really hard to get that CE credit attached to it. And you need not be part of our organization to participate. I think there might be a nominal fee for taking advantage of some of those courses, but a lot of them are available online, or you can come here to our beautiful office and take some of those courses and knock that stuff out gradually so you don't get bogged down with a bunch of mandatory continuing education hours right before your license expires. And you just started the new and improved legal course, correct?
Correct. So we just had our first one, legal 1 and 2 for 27, 28, and some interesting changes. We have a chapter on water. So if you didn't think that was becoming an important part of our industry, it is. And we also have a chapter on AI. Imagine that.
You can't drink oil. And although it might seem like it, you don't need it to survive. So water is one of the most important resources. And a lot of times we just take for granted it comes out of the tap. And when from a real estate perspective, ownership of those minerals and all things around it and how it impacts the value of your property is huge.
Absolutely. Agree. I mean, we are paying attention to it now. And I always say, as water conservation districts, which we have many in the state, as they start becoming taxing authorities, I think people will start to pay attention.
Sure. Yeah, nothing quite like there's so much to cover in water. Mud tax, who owns rights, where the water is going, especially in places like Canyon Lake, and when is it coming back?
Right.
So San Antonio is one of the fastest growing cities in the United States right now. What do you see on the ground as a broker? What do you see as a practicing agent? How do you're not from here originally. You've been here you are from here, but then you left and then you came back, right?
I'm from Texas. I'm from West Texas, near Abilene,
Okay.
Winters, Texas. And I went to school at UT in Austin. And when I graduated in 97, I moved to San Diego. I lived there for 17 years. And when my kids were 3 and 4, we decided we need a little help raising these toddlers. So we came back to where my family is. And instead of moving back to Austin, I was like, San Antonio seems like a better place to raise a family. I had already lived in Austin and I didn't want to go back there. So I picked San Antonio. And yeah, I've been here. I came here in 2014.
And how have the changes in San Antonio from your perspective? What have they look like?
Well, I wish the buyers were just running back, and I know that it's picking up, but I don't think we have this mad rush. But I also think, I mean, we are the fourth fastest growing city. There's 130 people moving here in a day. And so that's fantastic growth. And I think sometimes the buyers are coming here and they are getting a feel for the city before they decide that before they commit to buy. I know a lot of agents are out doing open houses. I've had my share, and as we have people come in, we're getting good turnouts at open houses from buyers. But I think they're doing a lot of research right now, and I think that the interest rates actually got them out the door.
Mhm.
So they're walking in, which is great. They're looking at what their payments could be. They're talking with loan officers. But I think people are still kind of in that research mode. So I hope by the time we hit spring, especially late spring, they're all making offers.
We've been chatting a little bit about foreclosures on the last couple of podcasts. What are you seeing? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it is interesting when I do answer the hotline. There's a lot of agents right now that are calling and saying, "Hey, I've never done a foreclosure before." So we know that there is definitely a rise, and I'm gonna say, what do I need to know? Is it gonna take longer? Is there a certain process? And of course, there's, certain forms that the bank may have you want to fill out and all that stuff. So because I know that I'm answering more of those questions, I know there's a lot of agents that are having buyers that are interested in foreclosures. Now, let me tell you, I think there's a little bit of a myth with foreclosures. Um, you can get a really good deal on a pre-owned home.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And so there's a lot of new investors that I'm talking to, and a lot of them are living here. And so I always ask them, like, if you're investing in San Antonio, do you know San Antonio? Do you live here? And they're like, no, I'm just gonna, yes, I do live here, but I'm gonna get my first one and I want to rent it out. And I say, okay, are you self-managing? Because how close do you want to be to this property? And as I'm asking these questions, I just think it's interesting that they're all new. And then they'll always ask me, instead of just looking for the house that matches their criteria, well, what about specifically foreclosures? And so I think a lot of people don't know that a lot of the banks, they'll package them up in a portfolio and send them to institutional investors.
Right.
And so our individual investors, or even you and I, if we just want to say we want to get a great deal, we have this myth that that's going to get us a great deal. Those aren't as available. I think that some people think we have this magic foreclosure dust.
Well, I think people, and we've talked about this on previous content, where people think that they see a foreclosure option or they see the opportunity to buy a foreclosure list, and they think that that is inventory that they could go out and buy.
Right.
And the reality of it is you can fall a couple of months behind on a house payment, and that can trigger the deed of trust to start to implement that instrument to start the foreclosure process, which beginning is public record. And all those companies are doing is selling you a list of public records. You can go to the county clerk's office and download that information for free. And also, it doesn't necessarily mean that that property is going to become available for you to purchase, because if I were to fall a couple of months behind on a house payment and that triggers a notice at the county clerk's office, because that's step one in the instrument of the deed of trust in the foreclosure process, it doesn't mean that I couldn't catch back up. Right.
Correct.
And so that house may never become available. And back in the olden days, when foreclosures were really all over the market, it could take years before the property actually became empty and turned over and went back out on the market. And sometimes it never does, because, like you said, it gets sold to a different pool of investors. So Don't buy the list. Is the short answer to some sage advice. Don't buy the list. If you want a list, I'd be happy. If you find that interesting and you want a step-by-step guide on how to download information for free from the county clerk's website, I'd be more than happy to do that. Just drop that in the comments and we can show you how to get that done for free. I'm seeing a few come in. I'm seeing more hard money lenders right now come in on foreclosures. Their process seems to be a bit faster. Do you have any like stories about having worked on foreclosures and how some of those positive or negative?
Well, I mean, and you know me, I love to help, and so when people talk about foreclosures, I always feel like, are we taking advantage of someone's loss, right?
Right.
And so I do have a story. I helped, they were clients of mine. They went through a divorce, and the wife was trying to hold on to that house. And she tried for a very long time. And we wanted to get her out, make them both whole as we could, and have them move on with their life. And it was emotional for her, and it was emotional for me because I sold them that house,
Mhm.
and I hated to see them lose it. Um, and I was amazed at as soon as the market knew that they were in pre-foreclosure, I almost told them, like, "You pretty much just need to leave your house," because we were getting showings constantly, and it was like the blood was now in the water and
Yeah.
sharks are coming out, and so from that aspect, it's sad a little bit,
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being honest, and I'll never forget that closing. It's always good to have a good closer. Michelle Yates was with me, and she was signing everything, my client, and we got her out, like, a day before.
Oh, wow.
So, it was down to the wire. She didn't have to bring any money to closing. We just broke even. And, so, of course, it was a success story, but the emotion of it and her closing was one of my most memorable because she was very upset.
Mhm.
But she was thankful that we were there and, they're renting and she's reestablishing herself so that we can go buy her something else. So, I like that story the best because it kinda tells you, if you are just looking at foreclosures, what that actually means on the other side.
Mhm.
Um, and as a matter of fact, you were talking about those lists. Our broker in Houston, Elena Sims, she built her business off of short sales and foreclosures. And but her goal is to help those sellers that are in that situation so they don't have to go to foreclosure.
Mm.
So if anybody is interested in that, that is February 19th. So it's coming up very soon. And it's the intro to short sales and foreclosures. You can go to allcityagents.com, click on the learning tab, and sign up for that, whether you're an all city agent or not. I think it's a good time. We're seeing that class increase because, again, there's an increase. Now, you worked in the 2008 market.
I did.
So, and I was buying
You
in
wanna
that
see the
market.
scar? I have a
I
scar here. I got one over here.
I have my scars. My scars was from being a buyer at that time, okay? So, let's
You
just
were a buyer? Someone was
I'm
buying
a
a house at
buyer.
that
I
time?
was a buyer. I was a seller and a buyer. I was 4 months pregnant, and a lot of of course, the numbers now versus 2008, I don't think we're ever gonna see anything close to that.
Let's hope.
But I remember going out, so the houses would meet our criteria, and most of them were a good price at that time, but we know why, right? So we would walk in and there's a strip of carpet missing out of the middle, or the fan's there, but the blades are gone. And people were pouring concrete down sinks. And there was so much that you could not see even through a home inspection that you may be dealing with on the other side.
That's right.
I'm like, just give me the pre-owned. I don't want to deal with this. And 4 months pregnant, I am not looking for a project.
Right?
So yeah, I mean, there's that aspect of it. And I know a lot of people did what cash for keys here in
Oh, cash for
2008
keys.
and
So cash for keys, if you if you don't know what cash for keys is it's a process. So basically the homeowner would stop making house payments. This was really common back in '08 and '09. The homeowner would stop making house payments. And like I said, it sometimes because of the amount of properties that were in foreclosure, it would take a really long time for the bank to actually acquire the asset. And so you could stay in the house for a really long time, like sometimes years. And so what they would do is they would eventually say, "Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to leave." You want me to leave? And then, the bank would actually say like, yeah, I'll give you $1,000 if you hand over your keys. Because it was cheaper and faster than making them go away.
Mhm.
Going through the additional process of actually moving them out. And so there are all kinds of little incentives, and it became a thing that was really well known at that time, just hang tight, and then eventually you get this severance package to get out, which might be a few thousand or $1,000, $500, whatever it is. So it might help with a mover. I had a buyer who was getting a FHA loan. So she was a first time home buyer getting an FHA loan. And she was going to buy a HUD home, which is a foreclosure. And she had gotten to the point in the process where it was being inspected and the water heater didn't work. Couldn't tell you if it was just dead or pilot, whatever the deal was. But they would not allow her to make a repair to a property she did not own, which is something you could do in a pre-owned sale so long as everybody is on board for it. I don't personally recommend it, but if it's something that like she really needed this, there weren't that many houses that like fit her budget. There were a lot of like constraints around this particular transaction. And so it was kind of like, and there was a time limit. I can't remember the details of it, but there was some kind of time stamp on it all. So she didn't close on this house. She was not gonna have the opportunity to buy again later. I think there was, like, some change coming in her employment status or
Wow.
something like that. Anyway, so this was kinda like this was the Hail Mary, and the inspector said, "Well, the water heater doesn't work." And she was like, "Okay, well, I'll just deal with that later, no big deal." And the bank said, "Nope." Her bank said no, her mortgage company, and then the bank that owned the property said, "Well, we're not fixing it." And because on a foreclosure, it's completely as is, where is.
Right.
Like, you're not renegotiating anything, and so that deal completely fell apart. Completely fell apart, had a willing participant who was ready to do what they needed to do to get to the finish line, and the bank, because of their confines and their inability to be flexible and collaborative to get to the final finish line, just let it all dissolve and fall apart. And we would see this time and time again with foreclosures and short sales. It's like, well, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way it's going to get done. And so we're not gonna deviate from these rules at all. There's no exception to the rule. And I mean, I was in the military. There's always an exception to a rule. Anyway, but so it was a really frustrating process. And
Mm.
that buyer lost money on an inspection on a house she didn't buy. She had had it appraised, so she lost money on the appraisal. And the end result was just really disappointing. And so kind of keep that in mind as we look at like what seems like a really attractive option.
Absolutely.
And to your point, people that are being foreclosed on, sometimes they're really angry.
Mhm.
And you'll see a lot of damage to the property and a lot of damage that you can't see to a property because they left with anger in their heart. I mean, it's a very emotional process.
Oh, yeah. And, I think what we need to be focusing on is let's do what we can as agents to help clients avoid foreclosure. And so I think and I mean, not a good strategy because I mean, it may not result in anything for the realtor because you're not selling a property. But I think any of those people that are probably the most vulnerable would be the ones that purchase from like 22 to 24.
Hmm.
They've got that higher interest rate. And a lot of the lenders were saying, hey, if the interest rates get better, we'll do a no cost refinance. Now, I think some of those had maybe max 2-year terms.
Hmm.
But I mean, especially for those 2024 buyers, call them back and say, hey, well, I remember what your rate was. Have you looked at refinancing and really be the source of the source and maybe bridge a lender with the client and see if you can get them a refinance. And who knows? Maybe that'll free up some funds and then they
Yeah.
can buy later. So I think that's a good strategy. And the only other thing, and we can talk about this, I know you and I talked about it a little bit, is there may be a change because I had mentioned the institutional investors. There was an executive order that Trump signed about, I don't know, was it 3 weeks ago, a month
Hmm.
ago, that will limit their ability to the institutional investors to purchase single family homes. So that could free up the opportunity. So we could see that change. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, it just happened, and I don't know, how that's all going to pan out. But I know Tree Pack's been fighting that for a long time to get
Tree
that
Pack
changed.
is the political super PAC for realtors.
Yes, and they did a good job on that. The only thing I can say is kind of seeing it on the other end, because my husband works for one of those institutional investors, is that they are good about maintaining a property, right? So they have the funds to fix those properties up.
Mhm.
And so I do worry about what happens if we end up with more of those properties and nobody wants them because of the conditions, or the repairs that need to be made. And what does that do to the neighborhood? What does that do to the community? So there's definitely pros and cons, I think,
Mhm.
on both of that. And then, of course, we see a lot of people, I think the newer investors have all gone to the BRRRR seminars.
Oh yes, the BRRRR. Tell us about
Yeah,
the BRRRR.
so the BRRRR is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. And yes, we definitely get a lot of questions about somebody that's wanting to start their first rental with the BRRRR method. So there's never a shortage of those investors, and so maybe
Saw it on TikTok, y'all.
yeah, exactly. Signed up for a seminar and got a steak.
Oh my god.
Steak and lobster. Um, but I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
with you. But I mean, maybe there's some hope with that executive order for for our burrs in our lives. So,
Well, there's a lot of to your point about about BRRRRs. There's a lot of rentals on the market right now.
yes.
Right now,
But
there is a significant uptick in rentals. The days on market is significantly higher than it was this time last year. But what's not higher is the amount of rent that the landlords are collecting. That
so
number is
true.
actually down. So there's a lot of what you call accidental landlords,
Mhm.
which are folks that did not intend to become a landlord, but decided to because maybe they bought their house in that window. And I will say the that that market where everybody was paying quite a bit more for their homes, we were so fortunate here in San Antonio. Yes, you had to pay more than asking price in most cases, but when you juxtapose that to our sister city up the road,
Right.
Austin, our overage was not anywhere near what theirs were. I mean, anecdotally, this is just like, boots on the ground talk. I was seeing agents and hearing from my colleagues in Austin that they were paying $75 to $100,000 over asking price to get the deal done. And here in San Antonio, we were seeing about $15,000 to $25,000 depending on the price point to get the deal done. And I developed this interesting strategy during that market on my listings that were anywhere up and down the I-35 corridor or up 281, meaning like headed in the direction of Austin.
Right.
I would usually the standard of practice in that time was, you would see multiple offers. They would post a notice in the MLS for the agents to see multiple offers received. Please submit your best and final offer by Monday at 9. And so Sunday nights, I would contact the listing agent, who by now is so fresh out of cares to answer his or her phone because they're just like getting an obscene amount of phone calls. And I would ask one question, and the question was, because they would all want like inside baseball, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, can you tell me where I need to be? Like, no, come on, I can't. Um, and so I would ask one question that I knew that they would not have any problem answering, which was, have you gotten any offers from anybody, any agents out of Austin? Because they were getting priced out of their market. And so they were
Coming
coming
here.
down to our market. And if the answer was yes, I knew we had to go higher. If the answer was no, because as a buyer's agent at that time, if I was wearing my buyer's agent hat, there's like this clutch gas situation where you don't want to hit the gas too hard and then peel out, and you don't want to release the clutch too slow and then stall out, right? And so I didn't want my clients to overpay a penny more than they had to.
Yeah.
And so this would tell me how much more we might need to actually go above and
Good
beyond.
strategy.
But so that was not, and that we were obviously doing that dance in the same office at the same time. And I like a little bit of balance
Me too.
and so I didn't that market was kind of, it was a stressful market to navigate. I think the optics of it were that it was super exciting and fun, and we were all selling a ton of houses. But a lot of times it meant you went to work for free for months and you worked your ass off
Absolutely.
and you got nothing out of it because everybody was fatigued and tired of making offers that weren't launching them into a house.
Right, and those people ended up renting, right? So at that time, the rental
Yes.
market, the inventory was low. They were doing well because people got tired and said, "I gotta move and I can't,"
Yes.
so they would rent again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and on the listing side, it was like, I mean, the calls and the just dissecting all those offers, and anyhow, it was a very interesting time. However, it's, while we are seeing some effects of that, I do think that, time will kind of heal that. Like, now that
Mhm.
we've gone back to a more balanced place,
Yes.
if you can hang in there and hang on to the asset just a little bit longer, if in fact you did overpay just a little bit too much at that time, it'll come out in the wash. You can't time the market. Warren Buffett will tell you that's just impossible.
Right.
So Charlie Munger will tell you that's impossible, and so you just kind of have to roll with the cards that you're dealt with at that time.
Exactly.
Talk to me about new agents.
Yeah, I know. Some people say, like, is it a good time to be a new agent? And I would say, it depends. With the right ingredients, that cake will rise. So, and what are those, right? I mean, I think you would agree with me. It's determination, self-discipline,
Baking powder.
and baking powder, yeast. But I think, it's definitely not it's not the multiple offer market that we were talking about. And I know you and I mentored a lot of new agents, and it was like we kind of made the joke that they just had to open their bag and the oil would fall in, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, it's not that time, but I think that if you also have a good sphere of influence, talking about me moving back here from San Diego and not knowing anyone, I had to work for a brokerage that took a big split and gave us a lot of leads to build my business. But if you're an agent that's grown up here, or you've lived here for a long time, you were in an industry or career that, gave you access to so many people, like you were networking all the time, then I think it's a great time to get into real estate. Use that talent to pivot your career into something else.
Mhm.
So, and as you know, at All City, we don't take brand new agents unless you are on a team or you are in a mentorship program and you have somebody that's guiding you through that. So, um,
And why don't we take new agents without those guardrails in place?
well, we want everybody to succeed, and our culture here at All City is to kind of like brand yourself. We know that your clients hire Meghan Pelley; they don't hire All City Real Estate. And so we want a lot of our agents to be seasoned so that they can really blossom and experience that growth. I mean, there's a few agents that could be new that could do that,
Mhm.
but we want a great reputation. We want to be doing the right thing, agent to agent,
Mhm.
that we talk about all the time, and then also to our clients, to the consumer. So yeah, so we just want to make sure you've got a lot of grounding under you before you go represent All City and represent yourself.
If you had to start today as a new agent, what would you do? I get this call a lot. I think you do too,
Mhm.
especially from past clients. Hey, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license. What do you think? What should I do?
Yeah, and I have told agents this many times because, you don't know what you don't know, right? And when I got into this, I kind of felt like I was thrown in the deep end. It was like sink or swim. I didn't have a lot of training. I did have one mentor who was my agent. Um, and so luckily I had a lot of times at bat. So that's kind of how I gained my experience. But I was doing the work and not necessarily having a system or a process in place. And once you get busy and you start doing it, that's a hard thing to implement. I mean, even as we've been in the business, you've been in the business twice as long as I have almost. And as the market changes, as technology changes, we have to adjust, and we still have to change those procedures and things to make it streamlined so that we're effective for our customers, for our families, everything, and to have that balance. So if I were to do it again, I think I would go to a seasoned agent and say, "I will pay you," or something. Like, I would want to see someone's process,
Mhm.
and that would probably be more important to me than going, "How much money can I make here?"
Sure.
And so I think that's what a lot of new agents, they finish their real estate school, they get their license, and they go interview people and be like, "How much money can I make? What can I get from you?" And I think the most important thing is ask the brokers, "What process can you give me?"
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's not what I did.
How can you help me close my ignorance gap faster? Yes, I would be willing to pay for that knowledge for sure. And never has there ever been a time when in the history of man when there are so many resources available to you to be able to do that. I think the difficult part is flushing out what is worth listening to and what's garbage. And in this line of work, there's a lot of people that are willing to offer you solutions to major problems at the expense of
Mm.
a whole lot of money. And some of that is just plain garbage. So it's hard to figure out what's worth doing and what's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Agents can go broke
Yes.
very quickly.
I mean, you make a good point. When I do a recruitment meeting, I tell agents, whether they're seasoned or not, because we continue to be marketed no matter how long we've been in the business. And I say, only pay for what you're going to use. So if you're not going to use a CRM every day, then don't have one. If you need to put your database
So
in a
use your
search.
CRM every day.
Yeah. I mean, you should use your
You
CRM.
should.
But if you're not, there's a ton of agents that don't, and I always say, what is your goal? Is your goal to do, one transaction a month because it may be your financial situation or your family structure. And so your goals are different than somebody that says, hey, I want to do 50 deals a year. So we talk to them because yes, it's like you're going to get inundated with the amount of money you can spend on tools that will never be used. And you really want the ones in your toolbox, which is usually those things that we already pay for with all of our membership fees and associations. So the one thing I can tell you at All City, we're not spoon feeding you, use this product, and I really like that. I thought it was refreshing and it kind of cut out the noise so that I could see exactly, what tools I needed to invest in and which
Mhm.
ones I could just
Yeah, move
let it
apart
go.
from. Yeah, I appreciate that too. I kind of forgot about. I've worked for a handful of brokers over the 20 something years that I've practiced real estate. And uh, I guess I've been here long enough that I forgot you are oftentimes being fed very strong suggestions as
Yeah.
far as who to use for what. And the reasons behind them could be because that company is great and they offer fantastic service for your clients and yourself. And the reason behind that could be that there's some kind of marketing agreement on the back end, and maybe you'd be better off with brand X instead of brand Y.
Right.
So it just kind of depends.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate everything you do for us here at All Cities.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I don't know how you do it all.
I don't know how you do it all.
Well, I don't sit in your seat, so that makes my job a lot easier. But if nobody's told you today that you kick ass, I would like to be that person.
I should tell you very much. Thank you.